The following is a conversation between me and the Jewish American student of Columbia University, Rachel Spiro. A lot has changed since our conversation. Rachel has informed me that since our last conversation, the protests have been taking a more radical turn. Things have been escalating and I don't know where they are going to lead. But still, without further ado, here is my conversation with Rachel Spiro. Hello, Rachel.
Hello, Doran.
Thanks for coming. I really looked forward to speaking to you. And I have so many questions for you right now because what I'm seeing right now is basically social media feedback, right? You're seeing the most extreme cases on one side saying, well, the protests are peaceful, multicultural, multi-faith, multi-ethnic, right? There are those who are demonstrating what is called pro-Palestine demonstrations on your campus these days. They would say that they are inclusive and that they are anti-Zionist or anti-Israeli government, right? They would not say that they are anti-Israeli per se or anti-Jewish, right? So I wanted for you to maybe tell us a little bit about how you are experiencing things as a Jewish student who is actually studying in Columbia University.
hmm Well, I think that it's hard to paint with a broad brush the all the protesters. I mean, mostly I'll go off of the rhetoric of the slogans they chant and also the written demands of the leaders, because I think that there's a wide range of ideas of the people who are actually in the protests, but certainly to say anti-Israel or anti-Zionist as that's explicitly what they've stated to be. So I don't think that's up for debate, really. No worries. April 17th, which was 12 days ago, in the morning before classes, they actually set up an encampment on the main lawn in front of the main library on campus. And they've been there ever since. So it's been 12 days. Um, the university president tried to let the NYPD come in about a day, the New York Police Department come in a day after the protests, the actual sit-in demonstration began. But they they came in and they arrested maybe 100 people, but the actual demonstration just moved over a couple of feet and it didn't get rid of the demonstration. It just sort of arrested some people who were then released right afterwards and didn't really put a dent in the demonstration at all.
Tell me,
Um,
tell me why do you think one would like to get rid of this demonstration, given that this that is America? It's
yeah.
so why
Well,
get rid of a demonstration? It seems strange. So what is particularly weird or different about this demonstration that requires this type of different approach?
yeah, there have been protests going on intermittently since pretty much right after October 7th. Um, But this one, they are actually, they've permanently set up and they are not doing it at specific times. The university has protocols for how protests are supposed to take place. And just having a huge encampment and, shouting things while classes are going on, disrupting the learning environment is it doesn't align with the university's policies.
I
So
see.
I
So it's
think they
not
have,
coordinated in the way that protests are supposed to be coordinated with the authorities.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So you mentioned something before about chanting. Now,
hmm
I have heard that there are some chantings going on in these particular kind of protests. That these chantings, many Jews are saying that these chants are anti-Semitic. And
hmm
I was wondering first, what do you hear? Not, I don't want to hear about social media, right? I want to hear from you who's there. That's first of all, and also I would like to hear why why do you believe that these chants are anti-Semitic, if you actually do believe that. So please give us your thought about that.
Well, one of the most common chants is I want to say it right. Say it loud, say it clear. We don't want no Zionists here. So, I mean, whether or not you think that's anti-Semitic really depends on whether or not you think that Zionism is Judaism or not.
Okay.
They also say revolution is justified when people are occupied, which is, pretty blatant justification of
Yeah.
something like October 7th.
I've heard people defending these protests saying that these chants are, well, maybe a few people here and there are saying these things, but the most of the protesters don't say these things. Is that correct in your assessment?
The ones that I just said, for example, are ubiquitous. Like everyone in the protests will chant them.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, so you
There,
would
there
say
are
that.
other ones like you said that you would see on social media, and mostly I would say these are outside the campus because since the protests have started, only people who have university IDs are allowed into campus. So even though that rule has been broken by a number of like people, but so tends to be the most intense and like where Joseph Haddad got hit was not in the campus, it was outside on the street, right outside, and at those more that those protests on the periphery, that's where you'll hear like I think the more like
El
violent
Qassam
slogans.
things.
Yeah,
Okay.
burn tell deep to the ground, stuff like that.
Okay. So, but do you think that Zionists equal Jews?
It's a really complicated issue. I mean, like you said in your live stream video, you said that the fact that there are Jews who are in the pro-Palestinian that are part of the movement is like the golden ticket for people to say that anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism
Yeah,
because they're
multi-faith and multicultural, right?
exactly. But I don't think that that negates the fact that in the US and abroad, I think it's more than 50%, at least like a majority of Jews are self-identify as Zionists. So sorry. So I think that there's a case to be made. But I don't think that every criticism of the Israeli government like is can necessarily be equated with anti-Semitism. I do think people have maybe been too quick to use that to label people who are critical with that term.
Oh, I guess we would have to agree on that, but it's politics, I guess, right? So there has to be some intellectual shallowness, shall we say, in order to resonate with as many people as possible. Now, I wanted to ask you about the Jews in the protests. Who are these people, and are there really so many Jews in these protests?
Well, the majority are in groups like Jewish Voices for Peace, which was actually banned along with Students for Justice in Palestine. Those are the two organizations that I think maybe a month or 2 months after October 7th, they were banned from the
Why were they
university.
banned?
But
Why were they banned? Why would you ban an organization from a free speech university? Like, give us what's going on.
I'm pretty sure the reasoning behind it given by the administration was that they broke some of the same reason why they would try and shut down the demonstrations is that they weren't complying with the policies of demonstrating, doing protests. They were doing it at the wrong times or in the wrong places. I'm not sure exactly what the reason was, but it was something along those lines.
I see.
So there are like the liberal students, liberal Jewish students who are part of the movement. I think for like the same reason that anyone else would be part of the movement. They
Yeah.
see what's going on social media and the war, and they want to protest it, which I think is, on some level very reasonable. And then there's also like outside the gates, like the Satmar and other ultra Orthodox Jews that they love to like.
Explain to the audience what that is. Explain what that is to our listeners and viewers.
It's kind of a fringe sect of ultra Orthodox Judaism, Haredim, that don't believe that Israel should exist because
For religious reasons, basically.
for religious reasons, yeah.
Okay. And these people are represented at these protests, And I guess,
There's always at least one or a few of them, it seems to be, because they're very visibly Jewish and they hold Palestinian flags and it's a good look.
yeah, I see. Okay, so tell me how do you feel as a Jewish student? Like, what is the experience of a one might say Zionist Jewish student at Columbia University? And I guess that would mean that that's the experience of most Jewish students, right? The overwhelming majority of Jewish students in Columbia University are Zionists. Am I correct?
I think it's more likely that the percentage is lower at somewhere like Columbia University as opposed to just like the general public of Jews because it's pretty liberal, but I don't know. It's probably still majority, definitely.
Okay, so it's very left leaning, and so you want to be careful before saying that the most of them are Zionists, but still you think that
Exactly.
probably most of them are Zionists.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so what's the experience like? Like, what's going on?
Well, so I mean, for everyone, not just Jewish students, the first day the encampment was set up, for example, classes were the voice of the lecturer was drowned out by chanting going on in outside, and
But that's not
because
just
of
for Jewish
that's
students,
not
right?
for
That's
Jewish
for
students,
everyone.
that's the truth. Just like saying that it was disrupting learning, but then the next day, also for everyone, the classes were put online completely because they couldn't figure out a way to like control the demonstrations, and people were voicing their like reluctance to come to class under those conditions. I think that demand probably came predominantly from Jewish students who didn't feel safe walking like with these like very loud aggressive protests going on
Why do
outside
you
and
call them
inside.
aggressive? What is aggressive about them?
I think I think just like honestly the rhetoric is what's aggressive about it, and just like I don't know, as a Jewish student it feels uncomfortable to have to be, you know, maybe judged by people walking by. I don't know. I'm not saying that they're all aggressive. I just think that there's an element of discomfort for a lot of Jewish students.
Okay, that sounds.
And there have been incidents, like I haven't personally experienced physical intimidation or harassment, but I know stories of people I know that have. If especially if you try and interact with them. Let's say you want to like have a conversation or something with one of the protesters, or even just I think even just being visibly Jewish has been reason enough to warrant harassment by certain people. It's not most of the protesters, but there's always like going to be a few bad people.
Well, you're not visibly Jewish, I would believe, right? So,
Yeah, unless I were to wear like a Jewish star or something like that. No.
okay. So, I'll try to rephrase what you're saying to see if I understand. You're saying that what makes Jews feel unsafe is mostly the rhetoric, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And that it's, well, mostly the speech that is offending in a sense, right? Or is the
Yeah.
problem not? I guess my question is this: is the problem you guys being offended, or you feeling literally unsafe?
I think it depends on the person. If someone has experienced, you know, incidences of physical harassment or intimidation, that's even just one time is enough to kind of like, I think, scar somebody a little bit
Yeah.
and make them not want to be there. But for most people, for a lot of Jews, I think just some of the slogans, globalize the Intifada, like a lot of these slogans are very concerning for a lot of Jews, and they.
What I'm trying to get at here is, okay, so we have this whole, let's call it a hate speech debate, right?
Mhm.
Is it hate speech to say, for instance, I'm not endorsing this view, I'm just giving an example, but is it hate speech to say all homosexuals are evil? Okay, so obviously there's something weird about that, but as long as it's only speech, it has to be somehow protected, right?
Mhm.
So what I'm trying to get at here is to understand what's happening at these demonstrations that goes beyond simply offending, right? When you say globalize the Intifada, for example, if it's a call to action, then it's not exactly only hate speech, right?
Mhm.
Because you're calling for action. You're voicing your support for an uprising, basically. An uprising specifically against, well, the Jewish occupiers, so-called Jewish occupiers of Palestine.
Yes.
Can you tell us what does globalized the Intifada mean in your opinion? Because I would assume that many people who wish to protect these protests, they would say that at the Intifada, for example, they would say that the first Intifada was quite a peaceful event.
Mhm.
So what do you hear when you listen to people chanting globalize the Intifada?
Well, I kind of agree with what you said that it's a call to violence, whether or not it's actually, endangering anybody like on the like at the protest is probably doubtful, but I think that a lot of these chants, including the Intifada, globalized Intifada or localized the Intifada, is kind of incongruent with some of the things they say. Like they'll say, we want a ceasefire. They'll claim to be like completely pro peace, but then they'll say things that seem to be implicitly or explicitly encouraging continued violence or resistance. Which yeah, it's like it seems a bit contradictory sometimes. The things that they say they intend, and then the the rhetoric they spew at these demonstrations.
Do you have any more examples or things that you've heard that show you that these demonstrations are not, well, what they're actually calling for violence?
Well, I think there's a lot of times speakers who will just talk about how, Israel's an imperialist, colonial settler colony, things like that, and that, there needs to be a resistance and uprising, that basically Israel doesn't have the right to exist at all, which kind of seems like they're saying that there needs to be like, I don't know, it could be argued genocide or just like a total destruction of the state.
Tell me, what do you mean when you say speakers? Because not all of our listeners or viewers know what it means when you say, well, rallies and speakers. And so, how does that work? What does that actually look like? Walk me through.
Well, there are both students who speak at these protests, and then even though
Is
the
it like a
campus is,
stage? Like they go on some.
um, I think it's usually just someone standing with a microphone,
Okay.
not necessarily on a platform or anything. Um, and so sometimes it's students, and then even though the campus has been restricted to just faculty and students since the protest really broke out 2 weeks ago. There's been a lot of politicians. There's been just activists who aren't affiliated with the university who find a way onto campus and will give speeches to the protesters.
Okay. And where is this going now? What is your sense of what is happening right now? What is are you now as a student? Do you know what's in store for you next week, for example? Do you know if you're going to class?
Luckily, classes are ending tomorrow. Tomorrow's the last day of class. But then there is finals and everything. So the classes they were put totally online for one day, and then after that, they sent out an email saying that, it was hybrid, so people could basically choose if they wanted to do Zoom or come in. And it's been like that ever since. And a lot of the final exams are
Wait a minute.
also not,
Okay. So hybrid means that you personally choose if you come in or not, right?
yeah.
So
Mhm.
let's say let's say that I'm a Jewish student who goes to the same class as you, and let's say that we have a friend who's a pro-Palestinian student. Isn't that kind of weird that maybe I'm a little bit uncomfortable or maybe even afraid to come to class while the other guy, well, he's not, obviously? what I'm asking is, wouldn't that just lead to a situation in which specifically the Jews are the ones not coming to class? Or is
Yeah,
it
I
not
think,
like that?
well, there's always students, no matter what, who want to take advantage of not being forced to come in personally,
Mm.
regardless of anything that's going on. But I think that I think that definitely a lot of a lot of the people who have taken advantage of the hybrid option have been Jewish students. On the other hand, there are a lot of Jews, myself included, who first of all hate Zoom, like not this, but hate like class on Zoom, and also don't want to like give in to I don't know, let the other side win, if you will, and want to continue to receive the education that they
Is
paid
that
for.
part of the
And
reason you're still going to class? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
um, I mean, essentially, I don't fear for my safety, personally, going to class every day. The worst that I've gotten is like bad looks or something like that. I don't know. Nothing that would really put a detriment to me
Why would you
coming to
get
class.
bad looks though, if you're not
If I was
visibly
wearing,
Jewish?
because I have worn a Star of David, maybe twice, and I think that draws attention that might not be
Hmm.
positive. So I just prefer learning in person. So unless there would be some sort of like real when the classes were all online, obviously that was one thing. But if there's an option for me to go in, unless there's really like I don't know, bad circumstances, I would continue to go in.
Are there students living inside the campus?
Yeah, in the tents, there's tents set up on
Oh,
the
no, that's
lawn
not
and
what I meant. I meant, is there
oh.
accommodation for students? Well, yeah. Is there like outside of the demonstrations, are there students living inside the campus? Or is that outside?
There are a few dormitories on the campus, and then a lot of them are in the vicinity of the school. My dorm is a few blocks away. So I like when especially towards the beginning of when the demonstrations were going on, like it wasn't as though I could go home and escape it because I could still hear it from my window.
Hmm.
So
And
yeah,
it goes
but
on all day?
not anymore. But at the beginning, it was pretty constant.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit more about the protesters? Who are these people? What's going on there?
So they're led by organizations, the ones that were banned, like I said, and then I think maybe a few others. Um,
How does that happen? How are they leading them if they were banned?
I don't know. They still have a social media presence and they use that to galvanize supporters to come to these demonstrations. And they still, I guess they just use social media as the platform, which, the university has no power over that.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, they kind of continue to organize without being officially sanctioned by the university. But at this point, it's hard to say who these demonstrators are because there's so many. There's like when I was on campus a few days ago, I would estimate that 25% of anyone I saw on campus was wearing a keffiyeh. So it really is, as
Wow.
they say, multiracial, multi-ethnic, like or multi-faith, all of that.
How does that happen? How does it happen that so many people in Columbia University are taking stances which would be considered quite extreme to the extreme left, well, pretty much almost anywhere else?
Yeah.
How does that happen?
I mean, I think that it's really a response to what people are seeing with the war in Gaza that has sort of morally outraged them. And
What
there's
are
a
people
case to be made.
seeing?
There's people are seeing like the death and destruction of like buildings and everything.
No, hold on, wait.
Bombing.
Wait a minute. You said that there were demonstrations right after the 7th of October, right?
That's true. That's true. That's another good point that you brought up in the last thing
No,
that
I'm asking you. Like, yeah, right, not what
there
like
were. The first demonstration was on October 12th. Yeah,
on
so
on the campus grounds.
on campus. And that
Okay.
one, there also was a pro-Israel counter-protest for, I
So
mean,
it's not
reasonably
what they're
so,
seeing. So it
5
can't be what
days
they're
after.
seeing because October 12th there were no pictures coming out of Gaza.
I agree. I think that a lot of the people who are leading the organization, I mean, their ultimate goal is total anti-Israel, anti-Zionism. They don't
Why?
really think that anything of the state is legitimate, but I think that they've got amassed so much support from people who otherwise wouldn't, maybe because of the war. So that's why I think they've gotten more support as time's gone on since then.
Why do you think? Okay, so why are they anti-Israel to begin with,
Um,
even before the pictures started flowing in?
in essence, they think that Israel is a settler colonial project that displaced Palestinians in 48,
But isn't the
ethnically cleansed.
U.S. isn't the U.S. also a settler colonial project
Very
that
true. And there's a
misplaced?
lot of there's a lot of overlap. I don't think you'll see any American flags flying at these demonstrations unless it's on the pro-Israel side,
I see.
because it's not congruent with their anti-settler colonialism to wave an American flag because they all also agree that America is an example of that. But they would argue that
Are
it's
these views so
going on now, and
rampant?
that was 300 years ago.
Are these views so rampant among the university students that it's? I mean, it seems absurd, right? That so many people. Well, because if you're anti-Israel, you're not necessarily anti-American, but well, as you've said, it's you won't see many American flags flying at these demonstrations, right? So
Yeah.
how does that work? I'm trying to really wrap my head around this because I'm not from the U.S. I don't know what the universities look like, and all I hear is well, essentially punchlines saying that the woke mob has, you know, taken over the universities or something. But
Mhm.
is that the case, or is that, you know, an exaggeration?
Well, I don't think it's just spontaneously arisen. I mean, there's plenty of classes that the universities offer that are anti-colonialist in nature. They teach about decolonial movements.
What does that mean for a class to be anti-colonial in nature? Tell me, as a
I haven't
student, have you ever
I
taken one of
haven't
these
taken
classes?
one. I haven't taken one, so I can't particularly say, but um
What do you
yeah,
understand
and a
out
lot
of
of
this as a student? You must hear a little bit about it, right?
I mean, I know that it's not just student body as well. Like there are faculty who have been, some like the most extreme, there are faculty who've been accused of like open anti-Semitism, supporting October 7th, etc. But
Wait,
that's just
being
like a
accused
few
is,
professors.
being accused is one thing. So can you tell us what they actually did? Because, the mere accusation doesn't count for much these days.
At the there was a congressional hearing, I think it was a week ago or so. Or no, it was no, sorry, it was actually right when the protests were starting. It was the day of the protests were starting. They coincided. I don't know if that's coincidence or what, but the day that the tents were set up, the president of Columbia University was also testifying in Congress about anti-Semitism. Um, and wait, what was I saying? Oh yeah, she said that there's a specific professor that's probably the most notorious, Joseph Mossad, who I think is a Middle Eastern Studies professor. And he, in Congress, he said that October 7th was amazing, astounding, great. And I looked recently I looked him up, and it wasn't that he just said October 7th was this, but he publishes online, like he report on October 8th, he made an article about it, and the language used words like that scattered throughout the article. So it wasn't as bad as they made it out to be, but it was still pretty bad.
So, and this guy is what is in charge of the Middle East studies in Columbia University.
Yeah,
He's the
I
one
don't
in
know if he's in charge.
charge.
I don't know if he's in charge, but
Hmm.
he's definitely a professor of Middle Eastern studies.
Well, that's an interesting way to interpret the Middle East and to study about the Middle East, I guess, right?
Yeah, and there was a lot of drama about him in particular because at the congressional hearing, she said that he was under investigation or he had been fired, and then he came out and said that that was like not the case. He had no idea about that. Um, and I think he's still on the faculty. So
Okay,
there is
so
a
that's
petition.
one. Can you think of more?
Um, I mean, I know a lot of professors who have signed, petitions. Um, I don't know. I think calling for the university to maybe divest. I'm not sure exactly what they said, but there was, a
Some sort
good
of
50,
boycott.
30 to 50 professors that are openly pro-Palestine, anti-Israel, what have you.
What does it mean to be pro-Palestine, as far as you gather from around the university? Because I'm guessing many people would say, yeah, you can be pro-Palestine. Why would you not be pro-Palestine, right? Because these people, they're suffering and they've had it rough, and there's no reason not to be pro-Palestine. So how do you, as a Jewish student of Columbia University, when you hear pro-Palestine, what do you make of it?
I mean, I think it's kind of tragic that the movement has become so radical because, as you said, I don't think that there's anything wrong with having sympathy with the Palestinian people and thinking that they have a right to a state, etc. But it's just there's no line between that and then you know, um, not thinking that Israel has a right to exist and other extreme statements that have been made. And it's like if you want to be a part of the movement, then you have to get on board with all this other stuff. I personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with being pro-Palestine, but um, it's so wrapped up in like pretty
What
extreme.
it entails, basically, anti-Zionism, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What I haven't asked you, which maybe this is a question that should have been asked a long time ago. But can you tell us what is Zionism, according to your understanding? What does it mean to be a
My,
Zionist, and then what does it mean to be an anti-Zionist?
okay. My understanding is that to be a Zionist is just to believe in the Jewish people's right to self-determination in their ancestral homeland. I think that's like the textbook definition kind of that's used.
Hmm.
But people who associate that immediately with suffering of Palestinians, with like displacement, etc., they'll say that it's they sort of define it negatively as not as like the right of Jewish people to self-determine, but as like the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians from their land, etc. It's just like an opposite view of what it actually means. I mean, I think that the truth is somewhere in the middle, but yeah.
Are you optimistic about the future regarding all this?
In what sense?
Are the universities lost to
I
you as
definitely
a Jewish Zionist American?
I think that there is a huge prevalence of radically anti-Zionist ideas as like very like just as part of the university. It's not a new phenomenon, I would say. I think that it's been that way for, recent years, but it's since the war began, this current war, I've also it's I wasn't at Columbia for very long until the war broke out. I had come back from living in Tel Aviv. It's gotten pretty unbearable. I mean, I'm optimistic that it can't continue at this caliber for very long. Like they're not going to be camped there forever, but in general, I think that there's definitely a strong shift
Why do you
towards
think
being.
that they care so much as to go and camp there? There are plenty of other conflicts that have had, you might say, more casualties and more suffering and more death. What is it you think that makes people so upset and so zealous, you might say, about this particular conflict or cause, you might say, the Palestinian cause, right?
I mean, I think right now people would say it's not a conflict because one side has tons of power and are using it to the Israeli side has tons of power and is using it to abuse the Palestinians. And so,
Yeah, but you can say that about what happened in Yemen.
yeah, I mean, I think that the fact that they view Israel as like Western, um, they sort of they sort of think that it has inherent it's just inherently worse somehow than like conflict that would be going on between other Middle
But
Eastern
they are
countries, for example.
Westerners also. Don't they see themselves as Westerners?
Yes, but maybe self-correcting. I don't know.
I see. How well educated? Well, okay, let me ask this in another way. Have you had significant interactions with some of the protesters?
I I really can't say I have.
Okay,
No.
because I was wondering how educated do you believe that these people are on basically on what's happening and on the history.
Yeah, I mean, you see videos on social media where people seem like they don't really have any idea what's going on,
Yeah,
but
but as I said, I was trying to avoid, the social media, which would show you the extremes, right, of both sides. Of course, that depends on.
yeah.
I actually quite enjoy seeing what the other side has to say on social media, even though it's quite disturbing most of the time.
Mm.
But yeah, do you believe that these protests are anti-Semitic in a sense? Personally,
As
I'm asking you.
aspects of it, but I don't think as as a whole inherently. I don't know. It's hard. It's really hard to say.
Tell me more. What do you mean, aspects of it?
Like, in my opinion, it's borderline anti-Semitic to deny that Jews have a right to live in Israel at all,
Why?
or to live in that area at all. That's just my opinion, basically. Like,
Okay,
I don't know.
I'll try to steelman an opposition and see what you have
Yeah.
to say about that. Okay,
Yeah.
so the argument would go, well, it can go many ways. But if I were an Arab, I could say to you, well, we don't have anything against the Jews. We're not anti-Semitic. Okay, they would probably say that they are also Semitic, but let's ignore that because I think it's a fallacy. So we don't have anything against the Jews, but also we really don't have anything to do with the Holocaust, and we don't
Mhm.
have anything to do with what you idiots are doing in Europe. So we don't see why why you would need to bring the Jews here and basically conquer this piece of land from us. That's what they would say. Okay,
Mhm.
so what do you think makes okay, so is this statement anti-Semitic? Because I would say that it underlies much of what is happening.
I mean, if you think of the Jews as a nation, then I think it's it's like reasonable to say that they should be allowed to self-govern, you know? And I mean, it depends what they offer as like the alternative, I guess. I don't know if they are like one state, like what does that really mean? It's kind of vague and people have different notions of it. So, but there are plenty of people who genuinely don't want any Jews there, which that, yeah, that's pretty anti-Semitic.
Do you think that there are many people who don't want any Jews there?
I think they, yeah, I think they exist. I don't think it's like prevalent here, but I
Okay,
don't
so
know.
that's
I
what I
think
was going to ask. Like, not in Israel, Palestine, okay? In the US campuses, what do you
Mhm.
think that these people want? What would be a victory for them? The destruction of the state of Israel, a one state solution? What do they want?
Yeah, I think a lot of them want the destruction state of Israel, and what happens after that is not clear. Like I would assume if you ask them, they wouldn't say that all the Jews need to be need to be ousted. They would
Obviously.
probably just say that it would need to be like, democratic elections of everyone who lives there, and so it would lose its Jewish character as a state.
Do you think that there is a sort of almost religious zeal that is involved here in these protests? Because it seems to me that, there aren't many things that people would be willing to sleep in a tent for. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I'm trying to really figure out what makes this so special. Many would say, it's the saying, no Jews, no news.
Mm-hmm.
There are some other very bad well, catastrophes going on all over the world. I guess the most apparent one that we can talk about is what happened in Yemen, in which more than 100,000 people starved to death, not killed, not bombed, not collateral damage or not collateral damage, whatever, starved to death, literally. And so you would imagine that people would chant for these guys as well. What I'm really trying to do, okay, so I'm saying this like this is what many pro-Israelis would say, that this seems anti-Semitic, because the difference between the two is that one has Israel and therefore Jews and the other doesn't. And I'm trying to be more courteous here and to think of a reason that doesn't have to do specifically with Israel. And from what I gather, from what you've said so far, it could be some sort of self-hatred of the West in a broader sense that's driving this and fueling this. And it's almost like a form of worship, right? If you were to go back in time, say 2,000 years, and you would come across some village and you would see all these sorts of people huddling around and wearing a specific thing and chanting in unison, you would think to yourself, "Oh, that's some sort of ritual that I've walked into."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to. One of the things that I'm really trying to figure out is what is going on there. Well, it's funny to ask, but spiritually, it seems to me that something is going on there on the spiritual level. Do you have any experience with that, or you were keeping your distance from these guys most of the time?
Um, I think that they view themselves in like the tradition of a history, like I don't know, a chronology of like liberal liberal protests. For example, they often compare themselves to in the 60s, the civil rights movement in the US. They see that they think that they're in their minds they're championing like the cause of an oppressed people and trying to better the world.
It's not just that, because why champion the cause of an oppressed people to make the world a better place specifically? Like you can champion other causes, not just for oppressed people, right? You can champion, I don't know, food for Africa. You could champion freedom from Soviet totalitarianism in China. You can champion, you can champion many things that don't necessarily have to do with this oppressed narrative. And is that something that you see going on inside of your university for some time? I mean, you said that you weren't there for so long, but is that prevalent? Is that something that you can feel that many of the, okay, let's put it this way. When we look at the world, we put on our glasses, one might say. And everything we see through the lenses of our glasses. So when did these people, or when did such a large minority or even majority of the university students decide to put on the glasses through which they only see three things as oppressed and oppressor?
I think maybe ideologically it has its origins in like the 1960s with the Vietnam War and things like that, and eventually South African apartheid and stuff like that. There's just been like, I don't know, it's been a prominent like mode of thought, I guess, for a long time. I don't think that it's something like radically new or anything.
Do you hear the word apartheid come up a lot because you've just said it?
Yeah, it's a common accusation thrown against
How do
Israel,
you
which
understand this accusation? Can you paraphrase it for us?
yeah, I mean they would say they don't they I don't think I mean, I haven't looked into it that much what their claims are about it, but like I don't think there's a way that you can really claim within like Israel proper, excluding the West Bank and everything, that there is apartheid because Arab citizens of
No,
Israel
wait,
like
wait, wait.
apparently
I want you to tell me what you understand their accusation to be,
yeah.
not how
Well,
you
I
would
think that
respond to that.
they might be including like everything under the Palestinian Authority and stuff like that. And so in that sense, they don't have the same system of governing or whatever. They fall under that description.
But do you think that this is what they mean, or are you being charitable? What do you think they mean? That's what I'm asking.
I mean, I think that's the only I don't know exactly what they would say if they think that within Israel even that it's apartheid. I'm
Mhm.
sure there are people that would find a way to say yes, but I think that the only way that it's even like reasonable to make that claim would be if you were including like all of the Israel/Palestinian territories and not just within Israel.
So it seems
So
that it seems that in order to proceed, I would actually need to actually speak to a demonstrator. Well, I
mhm.
guess one demonstrator wouldn't also be representative of everyone, just as you are obviously representing only
I don't
yourself, right?
Yeah, I don't know if they would be so open because I mean, this is an interesting platform, but like for example, they have like signs or the leaders of these movements, especially the ones who are actually camping out there, tell them don't talk to the press, don't basically just like don't talk to anyone. So I don't
Why do
know.
you think that? Why do you think that they are saying that?
I think potentially because of all the ignorant people that are part of the movement, not everyone, but there are people who would then
Useful
like,
idiots.
well, they look bad if they were to say something stupid and
So
not representative.
they're useful idiots basically for these leaders.
I mean, anytime you get such a mass of people, I don't think it's really avoidable in some sense.
Indeed.
Not everyone's able to be so knowledgeable, well versed on the topic.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Rachel Spiro, thank you so much for coming on and
Thank
speaking to me.
I did my best. I don't know if I'm representative of Jewish students at Columbia. I have my own experience.
Well, you're
So
not supposed to you're just yourself, and this is we've been doing here.
yeah. Thank you very much. This was interesting.